Who is more dangerous, UGA or Alabama? And I've got a direction I want to take this conversation. I think it makes it interesting because in terms of just the question, like it's obviously UGA, and it's not.
Mhm.
And it's not to say that Bama can't win.
What, you said it's not close. I disagree with that.
No.
No, no,
It
no, no, I disagree with that.
no, no. But again, that's not to say that Bama can't win the game. They can,
Yeah.
absolutely. But if we were talking about what is more likely, obviously the answer is Georgia. Like I think Georgia wins this game 7 times out of 10. Um,
Mhm.
they are
Yeah.
clearly the more complete team on all sides of the ball. Even though I love the improvement of Jalen Milroe, he is not Carson Beck, and he is not able to take advantage of his weapons in the same way that Carson Beck is. And Alabama's offensive line remains just a complete disaster show. And normally in these equations, it
Mhm.
is the back-to-back. Well, you could say no, Aaron, but I'm just going
Mhm.
service level statistically. They've given up
I'm
more
I'm
sacks,
I'm
more
I'm I'm just
takedowns than
listening.
anybody in the SEC.
I'm just taking it in right now.
Normally, when you're talking about Nick Saban against 99.9% of other teams, he has the daddy power, the daddy strength,
Mm.
and that still exists, but not here because Georgia's got back-to-back national championships. They actually took one from Alabama to even the score or excuse me, they beat him in the wait, they beat Alabama in the Natty, or they beat him in the SEC to
Just
go back to
Natty.
Natty?
No,
Okay, so yeah,
Natty.
they beat the
They
Natty.
they've
Yes,
not beaten Alabama in Atlanta in a long, long time.
yes, but
Long,
the
long
but
time.
but 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 the point is, Kirby Smart's won back-to-back national championships, took one from Nick Saban, who doesn't have the daddy
Mhm.
strength, and so like, no, I just Alabama is clearly the underdog in this matchup.
Well, and Vegas said, I think Vegas has it as what, a 3, maybe 4.5 point, somewhere in that, like within a field goal, around a field goal right now is the projections for that game in a few weeks. Georgia is the better team, but I will continue to tell Georgia fans, I thought Georgia was by far I would say the gap was to me even bigger 2 years ago. Like heading into that SEC championship game, the year Georgia won their first national championship, I was like, you are better. That was when they had the elite defense, like the best defense that we've seen in 2 decades. They had great running backs, great playmakers on the outside, a great offense line. Like Georgia was the heavy favorites. And not only did Alabama win, Alabama whooped their ass. Georgia got revenge. They ended up winning the national championship. I'm just saying, like, don't count your chickens before they're hatched. And I
I'm
don't think Georgia
mm,
fans are. Like, this is going to me, I think the gap is closer this year of Georgia's still the superior team and Alabama's behind them. But I think it's closer than it was 2 years ago.
but well, I don't know though because look at all the NFL weapons that were on that Alabama team. And was that not the
Right.
difference in overcoming that great Georgia defense? Like this Alabama offense, while I really like the rhythm they're hitting, and Tommy Reese is learning how to put Jalen Milroe in position to succeed. Milroe is playing very well. He's using his legs excellently. He's getting pretty efficient. Well, he's been efficient all year throwing the ball, but he's cut down on the mistakes, right?
Yep.
That said, I mean, those guys couldn't hold the jock of that Alabama offense a couple of years
No.
ago, the years
Yeah,
you're
but
talking about.
that was the but you talk about the offense, but that was also the greatest defense though too.
Is this Georgia offense not significantly better, though?
I don't want to say significantly
I mean,
better.
I'm not okay, well, maybe I'm doing a little too much then with the adjectives, but
Yep.
it is better, no? I mean, and I'm someone who's been hypercritical of this Georgia offense, but they're
Yep.
rounding into elite form. Mahonky came back great when Brock Bowers was out, and he's starting to really be explosive, and although, I love to hate on you for trying to convince me and gaslight me into thinking that Dominic Lovett and Rah Rah are some like uber explosive guys. They're very good. Like, I believe that's a better receiving core than Alabama brings to bear. There's a
Yep.
better quarterback and a better offensive line. I mean, mate, where is Alabama better? Whose front seven would you take?
I would say Alabama's front seven.
Okay, what
Their
about the
ability to get after
secondary?
the quarterback, Georgia.
Oh
Georgia
wow,
secondary. But it's a close one. Like that to me is a very close one because Alabama secondary is very talented. I think Georgia is probably the best secondary in the country right now. I mean, look what they did to Ole Miss, and Alabama did the same thing. Don't get me wrong, but I think Georgia edge with 2 All-American safeties, a cornerback in Kamara who's playing extremely high, Tyke Smith at nickel. But I mean, Kool-Aid and those guys on the back end, and Malachi Moore. I mean, Alabama's just as good on the back end.
Yeah, they're incredible in the
I
secondary.
think these are two of the best. I would say two of the top 5 defenses in America. Like, defenses are elite. I just think the kicker is going to be, can Jalen progress just even a little bit more of the next 2 weeks? Because right now, the way he's playing, if he would have
Yeah,
played
but
the way he's been playing,
Carson
if he
Beck.
played, yeah,
Sorry,
Carson's great.
I
But if
apologize.
Jalen would have been playing the way he's playing right now the entire season, he would be in the Heisman conversation. He's putting up those kind of stats right now. He's performing at that level. He just hasn't done it long enough to be in that hype right now. A 4-week, 5-week sample size is not good enough to get you into New York, but it is good enough to win you a championship if you're playing that type of football this late in the season.
Is that not apply to Carson Beck as well, though? And he might, I mean, who knows? Maybe he still finds his way to New York. For some reason, doesn't feel like he has much juice. But
No,
like, if he had been in this form from the very beginning of the season, he too would be potentially fighting for a Heisman. I feel like he's gotten better and better every single week I've watched him.
he has, but I think that the stats aren't significantly like that much. I think Carson, to me, has been one of the most consistent quarterbacks in America. Like, it's been a steady rise, like very,
Yeah.
very slight. Where like Jalen was like down here. I mean, his ass got benched.
No,
for
no.
the
So what
like,
I'm saying is you can say that Jalen has improved more on the year if
way
you want, but way more. But I mean, if
Carson's been consistent, very consistent. I don't think there's like this huge jump from week 1 to where they are now, or where
yeah, but
he is now.
he started higher in week 1. So he's still higher. I would still take Carson Beck over Jalen Milroe right now.
I
Would
mean,
you
if you
take
get
Milroe?
I know gap is that much, or what he's doing running the football at the moment is an absolute nightmare for a defense.
Hmm. Yeah, I
He's the
mean,
most he will be the fastest player on the field. The question is for Georgia, who's gonna shadow him? And I think
but that's
Georgia's
what I'm
gonna have a better
saying.
defensive plan than LSU will.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The top 5 defense in the country should be able to handle that element of Jalen Milroe's game. And if you can, he cannot pass himself out of it. Carson Beck may not have that element to his game, but he doesn't need that element because he's got guys like Brock Bowers and Mahanke and Lovett and Rah and everybody else back there. So look, I think
I feel like this is a reverse of if earlier this season, I was the one telling you LSU was the better football team, and you kept being so hesitant of it's Alabama, it's Nick Saban, and it ain't gonna happen, and it came true. Alabama won the football game.
Yeah,
I mean,
told you.
advantage being in Tuscaloosa, obviously, and that incredible environment. And now I feel like the shoe is definitely flipped in the sense of I still think Georgia's the better team, where you never felt LSU was a better team. I think Georgia's a better team, but there's always a sense of nervousness when it's Nick Saban and that team is playing top 3 caliber football right now.
Well, look, I was right the first time. I'm going to be right again, dude. So just believe me. No. In all seriousness, the Saban underdog factor is the wild card in all this because it's not something we're used to seeing. And when you give Saban extra juice, a lot of people want to roll their eyes at this. In fact, you used to roll your eyes at this earlier this year before you saw this Alabama team improve. But when you give Saban the juice, he has a way of maximizing said juice. So, but again, I just think like objectively, this Georgia team is better. And the last thing I want to mention here, and this is really all I wanted to get to with all of this. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. The most unbelievable part, and the thing that should stand out most about what UGA has done these last few years is UGA is building a dynasty, right? Like, even if they don't win this year, I'm sure they'll get another one like next year, the year after. Like we will look back and say this is a dynasty from Georgia. I feel confident in saying that, even though I think I've like argued against that in the past to maybe troll you a little bit. But the wildest thing, I've never seen this, and maybe some of the people in the chat can help me out and see if they know of a better parallel. But the most amazing part about it is that Kirby built all of this right underneath Nick's nose as another dynasty was in its prime. In fact, in a lot of ways, he is an offshoot of that first dynasty. And I don't know that I've ever seen anything like that in sports where you have a team and a program that is so clearly in control of sport for so long. We're talking 15 years of Alabama dictating college football. And it's not like they slowed down. When Kirby Smart started this run, Alabama was in its prime.
Yeah.
Still winning championships every couple of years. Like, still the program to beat. And yet, with that elephant taking up all the oxygen in the room, Kirby Smart still somehow managed to not just create his own, but then to overcome it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like he was an offshoot, a little, so you have this giant crimson blob, and then this little red and black circle sneaks out, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and now it's on the edge of completely absorbing the
But is
crimson blob.
Alabama
And
dynasty,
that's
is it
fun.
dead though? Is the Alabama dynasty
If Georgia,
dead?
if Georgia wins another championship, for sure,
Even
they're no
though,
longer the top program. You can't be a dynasty and not be the top program over a 3-year sample size. Like,
so
if
three is the magic year for you. It has to be 3 years.
well, we got to look at numbers and metrics here, right? And what's the hallmark of the Nick Saban era at Alabama? Not that he wins it every year, but he wins it one of every 3. He's never gone 3 years without winning a national championship. So that would be a big sign there.
I just think that I've said this the entire year about Alabama. I said from the very beginning, I said this offseason, this was a team building for next year. And you're seeing those young pieces start to play for Nick Saban. The recruiting class they had last year, Milroe playing a high level, like this to me will be most people's favorite team to win the national championship next year. So I think then if they do win a national championship next year, I think you have to go back and retract that a little bit and say, okay, that it was a bigger gap in between championships, but we're still in the dynasty for Nick Saban. Yes.
Guess who else is building for next year? Georgia.
You
can trade blows, but if you have 3, no, you can't have 2. You can't. No,
we did with Clemson and Alabama. Clemson had their little mini dynasty run for a good bit, and they were going back and forth winning championships with Alabama.
And who ultimately won out? Alabama. Georgia's ultimately going to win out here.
Well, I think it's also a fatigue thing of Nick Saban's going to retire a lot sooner too. So you're going to see him take over. Just
the point. Look, I don't want to go to. All I'm saying is just appreciate the fact that I've never quite seen anything like it, where underneath the nose of an emperor, an entire insurrection could be planned and a hostile takeover of the sport while that other program is still at the top of their game.
What did Nick Saban say? 7 years, 8 years. It's when Kirby took the job. He came out and said, Georgia's a sleeping giant because Nick Saban knew that Georgia had all the resources to win a championship. Fertile recruiting ground. You own the state of Georgia.
Yeah.
Money, facilities. You had everything there. You just needed a guy, and he knew what kind of coach Nick Saban or Kirby Smart was going to be. I don't think this was under his nose. He knew all along that Georgia just needed the right person to wake it up from its slumber. So all you're
doing is proving my point further. So all you're saying is that the emperor fully knew about the insurrection, looked at it, tried to stop it, and yet still got taken over.
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Excuse my language. That's for real insane, dude. I've never seen anything like it. So credit to Georgia. They're clearly the most dangerous, and dog fans, don't blow it. Ooh. Ooh, because if you do, I don't know if you're getting back in the playoff.
No.
I mean, even with the 3 ranked wins to end the season, it's going to be a tight field trying to sneak into that Final Four. Some guy says, I'm happy to see Bama fans love their team, but they are really delusional. Not saying that you are not good, but you are not as good as UGA this year or last year or the year before that. Well, that's kind of the last thing and that's why this SC championship is perfect. That's the last thing that Georgia has to prove is that they can start to beat Nick Saban consistently. Yeah. Because right now, Brian Kelly took out Nick Saban for you last year. You didn't have to deal with him. Right now, you have more national championships than you do wins over Saban. So that's got to change.